Okay,
Now
we're
let's talk
foreigners
about
now.
let's talk about foreigners, aliens.
Well, it's interesting that we're talking about this today, since yesterday or the day before, a case came out of the Seventh Circuit. The United States is broken up federally into judicial districts.
Yeah.
There are a lot of district courts. I think there's 700 and something district courts, something like that. There are 13 federal circuits. And each circuit controls a group of states. So basically, all of the federal law litigation that comes out of those states go to that circuit. Well, out of the Seventh Circuit, which is in the Midwest, upper Midwest, Seventh Circuit had a case that involved a alien.
So, we talked about this right before we started recording. I was more than in the middle. I was done writing an article about this decision that, as it was before yesterday.
Yeah.
The article was done. I was just tweaking it a little bit. And then this morning I opened up my phone and I saw this thing and I'm like, dang it, now I have to rewrite this whole thing because this decision...
The answer is yes. You have to rewrite the whole thing.
Overturned the previous decision. So let me give you a quick summary of the case. So this person, Heriberto Carvajal Flores, correct me on the pronunciation if you want, was in Chicago, an unlawful alien, illegal alien, whatever you want to call it, somebody without authorization to be in the United States. Got himself a gun, as far as I understand, loaned or borrowed from somebody else during a period of unprecedented civil unrest, the George Floyd riots. No criminal...
The Summer of Love.
Yeah, 2020. No previous violent convictions, no violent criminal convictions. Got some tickets or whatever, speeding tickets or something like that. Nothing crazy. Completely normal type of person. No convictions, no criminal history, no gang affiliations, nothing. Got himself a gun for personal protection and fired a couple of shots at a, as I read it, as a passing vehicle. Although in some other sources I read that he was under the impression that the driver of the vehicle was about to run him over and hit him and, commit an assault with the vehicle. So it was self-defense. But the only charge that this guy was charged with was the unlawful possession. No illegal discharge, no assault, none of that.
Well, it's Chicago, so that's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool in the state of Illinois. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
That's not a problem.
The only charge was the unlawful possession. Now, the judge in that case initially said, sure, that's a good charge, convicted. But then in 2022, Bruin came out and they reversed the decision and said, actually, now that we're looking at historical context, text,
The federal
tradition,
district court reversed the conviction.
Correct. So the judge, Sharon Coleman, said, we're going to reverse this and drop the charges and, you're cleared. And that brought everything into question about gun ownership for illegal aliens for a period. Am I summarizing this correctly so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So this person then was cleared, and now all of a sudden we were looking at, is this now a precedent for illegal aliens to become lawful gun owners? There's definitely not a process for that. Because none of the forms and the procedures have changed. You still have to do your background check and all that sort of stuff. But then now the district court in the Seventh Circuit said, or the Seventh Circuit, said, wait, we don't agree with that assessment because there is tradition, there is an analog that you have to swear allegiance and you have to, be loyal to the United States, so to say, because that's what they did after the revolution with the British, the loyalists. Whoever swore an oath to the United States could get guns, and whoever didn't could not.
As soon as they washed off their Tory stink,
Right.
they were allowed to own guns.
Yeah, so they've said, okay, that's the condition on gun ownership. Then the historical analog is citizen, not citizen, or even as a non-citizen, a green card holder, permanent alien, legal resident, is not a prohibited person because in order to get the green card, you have to,
Swear allegiance.
Swear allegiance. So what's the consequences now of that case? Is everything the way it was before?
Well, yes, everything is back to, and still is, where it was before, which was that aliens who are in the country illegally, LPRs, lawful permanent residents, people that the United States have granted a right to be in the country on a path to citizenship, those people can own guns. If you're in the country illegally, you can't own a gun. It's federal law. I think it was 922 of the
Title 18.
Yeah, 922 G1.
G5.
G5? Okay.
I think. I'm doing that from memory.
Okay, yeah, me too. But there are two parts to the opinion. And the first part, which was only less than 5 paragraphs, I mean, this was a pretty big opinion. It was like 30 or 40 pages. But 5 paragraphs was devoted to the first question.
Who are the people?
Is an illegal alien a people under the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed? So if you're not a people, then the Second Amendment doesn't apply to you. So you have no right to have a gun.
Right.
So in order, Mr. Carbajal had to be a people under the Second Amendment. And they disposed of that in 5 paragraphs, although they did acknowledge that they are an outlier. They found Mr. Carbajal to be a people.
Right.
And they acknowledged, and most of that 5 paragraphs was talking about what other circuits, United States circuits, had found. And most circuits have found that illegal aliens are not a people under the Second Amendment.
So what was the arguments that they used to say, in fact, in this case, he is? So first of all, they make it a case by case, right?
Right.
They are not saying this is a categorical ban on illegal aliens from the people. Some can and some are not part of the people, right?
Right.
Okay, so in this case, what's their reasoning for saying he is part of the people?
They're saying that the Supreme Court precedent is so ambiguous on whether illegal aliens are people for purposes of the Second Amendment that we're going to say that they are. But they do acknowledge that 3 other circuits said they're not, and they did acknowledge 2 other circuits assumed that somebody was a people if they were here illegally, but didn't decide it on that issue because they were going to decide it on the historical analog issue.
Okay.
But this is the only circuit that I know of that has come out and said, based on Supreme Court precedent and their lack of clear guidance, we're going to find that illegal aliens are people. If the Supreme Court does take this case, and I don't think they will, because the result of the law being upheld is still in effect. So I think Mr. Carbajal Flores is likely to appeal to the Supreme Court. I don't know if they'll take the case because it won't change. They won't be changing the law by doing it.
And this has to be narrowly applied to the Second Amendment, right? This has no
Correct.
bearing on voting rights and any of that.
And no bearing on the other amendments, because for purposes of the other amendments and different amendments, different results.
Well, and also in it doesn't. Not all the amendments talk about people. Some talk about persons. Some talk about
Correct.
citizens. So there's, persons is any human.
For
right?
example, everybody in the United States is subject to the protections against cruel and unusual punishment.
Correct.
And so that just makes sense.
Yeah. First Amendment is one of those as well.
Right. Within limits. And here's what I mean. Secretary Rubio is not letting people into the United States because of what they've said. You don't get a visa. So you are constricted under the First Amendment. And the Second Amendment doesn't apply to you if you're illegally in the United States.
Interesting. Okay. Well, first of all, you have to be in the United States.
Correct.
To get that protection. If you say something,
But you could have your visa revoked if you're in the United States based on things that you have said and done. It's that case of the person from Colombia.
Okay.
I mean, that's a big issue right now.
Yeah.
That's all because of, does the First Amendment apply to you, and what are the protections?
Yeah, I mean that's an important issue. First Amendment. I mean, we're doing a podcast. My main purpose is the Second Amendment, but First Amendment is equally important in this case because we're doing the podcast. So freedom of speech is. But I get where some of those decisions are coming from. I'm not saying I categorically say you are allowed to say anything and everything. There are First Amendment restrictions, like child pornography, for example.
But there are First Amendment restrictions between immigrants, between
immigrants
people
and
in the
citizens.
country and citizens.
Correct.
There are differences. There are differences in the level of, quote, process you are due, or due process. There are different levels of due process that are afforded to immigrants and afforded to citizens.
Yeah,
That's
true. And a lot of countries have those.
Yes.
I mean, my native Germany has they have two categories for basic human rights. There's one that's called a Jedermann Grundrecht, which we like the long words in Germany. That's one word, which means anybody's basic rights.
Well, German's never been a love language. So it's,
And then there is Deutsche Grundrechte, which means German basic rights. So there are some that apply only to Germans, and there are some that apply to everybody. And a lot of countries have those, including the United States.
yes. So that was the first question, was whether he was a people. And they came to the conclusion he was a people. There's a really interesting side note on that. They said that they understood why the other jurisdictions, the other circuits rejected somebody being a people, because they owed allegiance to a foreign country.
Yeah.
They hadn't sworn allegiance to the United States. Well, you know where that might bleed over into? 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship. Because the 14th Amendment just doesn't say if you're born in the United States, if you can make it over the border and pop out a kid, they're an American citizen. It doesn't just say that. It says, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Well, that seems very analogous to owing allegiance to a foreign power.
Right.
And so there's an interesting twist on the case that just came out with Carvajal that it might be used for birthright citizenship.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right, so we're on to part two. So that was part one.
Part two, yeah.
And they said, all right, you know what? He's a people. Let's move to part two. You don't get a gun. And they said that because of the Bruin requirement, which says that you cannot have restrictions on firearms that were not historically based in previous analogs in American history. So you can't make up a restriction right now if it didn't come out of somewhere in American history, particularly at the founding, that allowed those restrictions.
Okay.
And so what they found was, no, there's been a long history of the United States of allowing non-citizen illegal aliens, people that refuse to swear allegiance to the United States, a long history of the United States curtailing firearms rights. And so we find that 922G is analogous to those. And we're going to say you can't have a gun.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
simple.
Pretty straightforward.
Yes.
So we're back to square one.
Well, we're back to where we were,
Yeah.
at least in that case, which is illegal aliens can't have guns.